One of the theories making the rounds, and it's based on the timeline that unfolded on Tuesday, Rodney, that Robert Saleh had a staff meeting, told the coaches that Nathaniel Hackett was going to be demoted as offensive coordinator. Not fired, but I think left with so few duties. What am I doing here? I should just go. I think that's how bad it was going to be. Todd Downing was going to take over. Well, here we are now with Todd Downing essentially taking over. Let's listen to Jeff Ulbrich from yesterday explaining that he's making the change at the top of the offense.
After a lot of time to think about it and did not make this decision easily by any means, I'm going to make Todd Downing the play caller for the New York Jets going forward. And this is more a byproduct of a different take on things. I'm not saying it's a better or worse take on things by any means, but just a different take on things, a fresh approach. So ultimately, Todd will have the full say on the game plan and ultimately the plays that are called within the game. Saying that as well, just another testament to the human being that Nathaniel Hackett is. The fact that he's going to give us everything in his body and heart and soul, and he's going to continue to be a big part of the success we're going to have going forward from an offensive perspective. And just I feel so fortunate that he's staying with us. Here's a guy that's been a head coach in this league and willing to draw cards, willing to do whatever it takes. So the true heart of a servant. Just I feel so fortunate that he's on our staff, that he's in our lives, and I can't speak enough good things about him.
When he says, I feel so fortunate that he's staying with us, that kind of suggests that he had the opportunity to just say, all right, I'm not the offensive coordinator. I'm out. And he's choosing to stick around. Look, at the end of the day, I don't know how much it matters because Aaron Rodgers has exercised free reign at the line of scrimmage to change plays, but they had to get him on board with this. And we thought on Tuesday he's not on board with Nathaniel Hackett being demoted, and maybe that's why they activated the let's get rid of Robert Saleh thing. Yesterday's developments would cut against that because at the end of the day, there's no Saleh and there's no Hackett, at least not in that role of offensive coordinator.
And then you look at Rodgers, and what is his impact on the football field, Mike? He looks like an old man. And I have a lot of respect for him for how he's, fighting and clawing out there, trying to stay on the football field. But with that offensive line, the way he's moving, he looks like an old man. He looks like he's limping. He looks like he's very limited in terms of his mobility. And he just can't make the throws and make some of the plays that he made in the past. So we're sitting back looking for this Aaron Rodgers that we saw 2, 3, 4 years ago, and it's not going to happen. And when he comes back, he's going to continue to limp and to look like an old man because each week the season gets older. You get a little older in the season. And I just don't see Aaron Rodgers being a difference maker at this point in time with the way he's looked the first month of the season. Mike, he's out there limping. It's like he's so tight or he can't really explode. And it's just going to be hard to win football games in the National Football League, and you got a quarterback that can't move.
And you know how this goes as you play into your 30s. It takes longer to recover from one game to the next. And they have played 6 games. They had 3 between the 9th and the 19th of September. He came out of the week 5 game with a swollen knee, week 4. He came out of week 5 with a ankle injury, and Ulbrich yesterday said there's some hamstring stuff going on too. So they get they get an extra day before Monday night, but still, it builds up. And you never fully heal from the one thing, and then you get something else. And you get to a point, you're already slower because you're older, and then you got these injuries dragging you down. And the other thing that's been disturbing about Rodgers is his demeanor. First half of the game on Sunday, always pay attention to the look on the quarterback's face, how he's moving, how he's acting, how he's interacting. Does he look like he's interested? He looked disinterested. He looked detached. I'm surprised they almost won the game because it felt like he was ready to throw in the towel by the end of the first half. And maybe that late touchdown is what woke him up.
The most frustrating thing as a player is when you're on a football field, Mike, and you're limited and you can't do the things that you're asking your body to do. So when you see a lot of those looks, yes, it might be a look of disgust or frustration at his teammates, but it's also a look of I'm frustrated because I'm older. I can't do the things that I'm used to doing. I mean, how many times has he's backed out and done a spun around and rolled out to his right side and it looked great. And now he's trying to do that and he's got a little gimp to him and he's not able to do the thing. So it's frustrating to him. And then, of course, it's frustrating to him because he can't practice with his guys. He can't practice the timing routes with Mike Williams because he's always hurt. He can't practice the timing routes with other guys. And then you see Alan Lazard, who he just absolutely wants to rip his head off because, I mean, you're my guy. I lobbied to get you here. They pay you and you're not making the plays. And that's what you see. You see a frustration from the play calling. Like I said before, no creativity. When you look at that offense, it's very predictable. You got Garrett Wilson. He's frustrated. He's a young guy that seems like he's frustrated. They don't run the ball enough. They don't know which running back to use at what time. It's just an absolute mess in the New York Jets system now.
And as we get spoiled by this notion that quarterbacks can play into their mid-40s, it's got to be a guy who was never all that mobile in the first place like Tom Brady, because the legs are going to go before the arm goes. The arm's going to be there. The legs aren't. And for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who was always a mobile quarterback, even if he didn't run a lot, he had the ability to run away from pressure. He'd see a stretch of green grass and he'd run to it. You start to take that away, you got to readjust how you're operating your body before you actually throw the ball. Brady, it was never an issue. Brady got to the point by the end where walls start to close in, he'd just throw the ball up for grabs if he had to. But Rodgers has to make that transition. He almost has to play like he did the year, Rodney, that he had a calf injury and he was basically playing on one leg. He stayed in the pocket and he delivered it that way. I think he needs to come to that realization. I got to do that. I can't frustrate myself by trying to do the things I can't do anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just an adjustment that all older players have to make, and if you're not as fast as you once were as a secondary guy, as a safety, you might need to take, instead of lining up at 12 yards, you line up at 14 yards. Those are some of the subtle changes that you make. But as a quarterback in the National Football League, especially one that we've grown so used to moving around and making these spectacular plays, now all of a sudden he's trying to get away from a 325-pound lineman and he can't run away from this guy. So he's frustrated. So now his mindset has to change. I have to get the ball out quicker. I don't really trust my offensive line. I mean, they're better than what it was last year, but I still don't trust this offensive line. And of course, they don't have a lot of playmakers. I talked about Alan Lazard. I mean, he's a big physical kid. There's no way he should be coming across the middle dropping passes. And he's a big, fast kid. He should be catching passes down the field. And I just, like I said before, I just don't see it happening with Aaron Rodgers in this offense. Maybe the new offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, will give him a spark and maybe show some level of creativity. But I want you to watch this offense and just see how just bland it is. It's just simple.
That'll be the last game for Week 6. We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about some of the other games to come this weekend. That's next here on PFT Live. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.